I need to tell this the way it happened, in order, or it won't make sense. And even in order, I'm not sure it makes sense. That's kind of the point. 3 years ago, when I was 26, broke, and between apartments, a woman named Carol Whitfield hired me to house-sit her home for 6 weeks while she settled her mother's affairs, out of state. I found the listing on a community board. $10 an hour, free room and board, one simple job. Water the plants, collect the mail, and this was underlined twice on the printed flyer. Do not go into the room at the end of the hall. I remember laughing about that with my friend Danny. It's like a fairy tale, he said. Bluebeard's wife, but for rent money. I should have listened to the joke instead of making it. The house was a 2-story colonial on a quiet street outside Harrisburg, the kind of place where every lawn is the same shade of green and every mailbox matches its neighbor. Carol met me at the door with a folder of instructions. Thermostat settings, the vet's number for a cat I never actually saw, and a laminated card taped inside the pantry door that just said, "If you hear it, don't answer it. Just wait." I asked her what that meant. She smiled the way people smile when they've decided a lie will land better than the truth. "Old pipes," she said. "The house talks. You'll get used to it." She left the next morning. I remember watching her car pull out of the driveway and feeling, for just a second, like she was in more of a hurry to leave than someone visiting a sick mother should be. The first week was boring in the best way. I watered ferns. I brought in junk mail addressed to a Harold Whitfield. Carol's late husband, I assumed. I slept in the guest room, which had a lock on the outside of the door, which I told myself was just an old house being an old house. The door at the end of the hall stayed closed. I didn't even think about it, honestly. Not for the first 10 days. It started on night 11. I woke up at 3:14 a.m. I remember the time because I looked at my phone twice, convinced I'd misread it. I woke up to the sound of someone humming. Not singing. Humming. Low, tuneless, coming from somewhere down the hall. I lay there telling myself it was a pipe, the way Carol said. Pipes don't hum in rhythm, though. Pipes don't pause to breathe. I got up. I stood in the hallway. The sound was coming from behind the door at the end. The one I wasn't supposed to open. Under the door, a thin line of light, warm and orange, like a lamp left on. I did what the card said. I didn't answer it. I went back to bed and lay awake until the sun came up and the humming had long since stopped. In the morning, I told myself I'd dreamed it. That's the thing about being alone in a house that isn't yours. You start narrating your own sanity out loud, just to hear a voice say it's fine. It happened again on night 14. And 16. Always past 3. Always that same tuneless hum, like someone rocking a child that wasn't there. I called Carol. She didn't pick up. I texted her. Everything okay? Heard something last night. She wrote back 4 hours later. Just the house. Ignore it and it stops. I wanted to ignore it. I really did. But there's a specific kind of curiosity that isn't curiosity at all. It's your brain trying to make a threat make sense so it can stop being afraid of it. I told myself that if I just looked, just once, I could file it away as nothing and sleep through the rest of the 6 weeks in peace. So on night 19, I got up, walked to the end of the hall, and put my hand on the doorknob. It was unlocked. I want to describe this carefully, because this is the part where people usually assume I'm exaggerating for effect. I'm not. I wish I were. The room was a nursery. A crib against the far wall, made up with a soft blue blanket, no dust on it at all. Everything else in that house had a fine layer of dust from disuse, but not this room. A rocking chair by the window, still rocking, just slightly, like someone had gotten up from it seconds before I opened the door. A mobile of little paper stars turning overhead, though there was no draft that I could feel. And on the dresser, dozens of photographs. All of the same baby. All of them scratched out, not torn, not burned, scratched, like fingernails dragged across the boy's face in every single frame, over and over, until the paper had worn through in some of them. I didn't hear humming anymore. I heard breathing. Slow, even, coming from the crib. I want to be honest with you. I did not walk over and look inside. I have thought about that decision every day for 3 years, whether I was a coward or the only being sane. I backed out of that room, shut the door, and sat against it in the hallway until morning, because some part of my brain, the oldest, least evolved part, told me that whatever was breathing in that crib was not something I was equipped to understand. At 7 a.m. I packed a bag. I was ready to leave, deposit or no deposit, job or no job. That's when I found the second folder. It was tucked behind the fridge, half fallen down the gap between the appliance and the wall, like someone had shoved it there in a hurry and never came back for it. Inside was a stack of handwritten pages. A journal. The handwriting wasn't Carol's. It was looser, younger. The first entry was dated 4 years earlier. Day 1. Carol says just don't go in the room and everything's fine. She's paying me triple what the ad said if I don't ask questions. I could use the money. Rent's due in a week. I sat on the kitchen floor and read the whole thing in one sitting, my hands shaking hard enough that I had to keep putting the pages down. The entries got shorter as they went. Less detail. More fear. The last 5 were barely legible. Day 24. It's not humming anymore, it's saying words now. I think it's saying my name, I think it knows my. The journal ended mid-sentence. I looked up the previous sitter's name. She'd signed the front page, just a first name, Renee, and after I left that house, months later, once I'd worked up the nerve, I searched for her. There is a missing persons report filed 4 years ago, in that county, for a Renee Aldous, last seen leaving her apartment for a house-sitting job. She was never found. I didn't know that yet, standing in Carol's kitchen. All I knew was that someone had been here before me, had heard exactly what I'd heard, and had stopped writing. Here's where the story gets difficult to tell honestly, because I have to describe a decision I'm not proud of. I didn't leave. I told myself it was the money. 6 weeks' pay, more than I'd see anywhere else that fast. I told myself the room was a trick of grief. That Carol had lost a baby once, kept the nursery as a shrine, and that guilt and old houses do strange things to the mind of someone sleeping alone in them. I told myself the breathing was my own pulse in my ears. I told myself Renee probably just skipped town, the way troubled 20-somethings sometimes do. I told myself a lot of things, because the alternative was admitting I was afraid of something I couldn't name, and adults aren't supposed to run from things they can't name. So I stayed. And for 12 more nights, I didn't hear anything at all. No humming. No breathing. Nothing. I started to believe my own excuses. I started to feel, almost, safe. Which is, I've since learned, exactly how it's supposed to feel right before the last night. On night 31, I woke up to the sound of the rocking chair. Not humming. Not breathing. Rocking. That specific creak of old wood taking weight, over and over, slow and steady, coming from right outside my bedroom door. I didn't open it. I want that on record. I have never been more disciplined in my life than I was in that moment, lying rigid in that guest bed, staring at a door I had never once thought to check for a lock on the inside. The rocking stopped outside my door. And then something exhaled, right up against the wood, so close I swear I felt the temperature drop on my side of it. And then it spoke. Not words, not exactly. More like someone trying to imitate a voice they'd only heard secondhand, testing out the shape of language. It said a name. It wasn't mine. It was Renee's. I lay there until dawn without moving a single muscle, and when the sun finally came up, I packed everything I owned into one bag, left a note for Carol that just said I quit, keep the deposit, and I have never, in 3 years, driven down that street again. Carol never responded to that note. I looked her up eventually. The house sold 2 years ago. New owners. I found a listing photo online, months after the sale, taken for a real estate site. Every room was photographed. Living room, kitchen, both bathrooms, the master bedroom. There was no photo of the room at the end of the hall. Not because it was hidden. The floor plan on the listing shows 5 bedrooms. The photo gallery only has 4. I don't know what that means. I've thought about emailing the realtor and asking. I never have, and I don't think I ever will, because there's a version of the answer that would keep me up every night for the rest of my life, and there's a version of the answer that's just a photographer who forgot to take a 5th picture. I've chosen, deliberately, to never find out which one it is. Some doors, once you understand the cost of opening them, are better left as a story you tell rather than a room you visit twice. If you ever house sit for a stranger, maybe read the fine print. Like and subscribe to Things People Do for more.